The facts were the problem here. They didn't match the accusation. They didn't fit the story. They didn't give the prosecution what it needed. And because of that mismatch, the case fell through the floor. And when that happens, the state loses not just the case, but the image of authority it was hoping to project. Because nothing looks weaker than a government court stretching the law to make a political point, especially when the court refuses to go along with it. And the collapse matters because it slows the project down. It doesn't stop it, but it slows it. It forces the government to reconsider how far it can push the terrorism framework into political speech. It forces prosecutors to think twice before building another case this thin. It forces police to realise they might end up testifying about software bugs in front of a tribunal that isn't inclined to indulge them. And it forces the public to confront the possibility that the terrorism label is being used for political management rather than public safety. These are not small consequences. They reshape how the next case is built, and they remind people watching that the government's narrative is not always the law, even if it wants to be. There's a deeper issue here, though, which is the health of British democracy itself, because democracies don't criminalise political dissent unless they feel threatened by it. And they don't treat solidarity movements as security problems unless they've already decided that public opinion is the enemy. And when a government starts using terrorism laws to discipline political speech, it's a sign that something is broken. The Strecker trial exposed that break because it shows how easily the government will reach for its harshest tools when confronted with a political position it doesn't want to see grow. And it showed how vulnerable activists become when the line between dissent and extremism is controlled by a government with an ideological stake in blurring the lines. But the trial also showed that the state's power is not absolute either. It showed that when someone forces the government to argue openly, to justify its claims, to expose its evidence, the machinery can be made to stall. It showed that courts still have the capacity to resist political pressure, and it showed that independent media, acting outside the constraints of billionaire ownership and political patronage, can break stories that mainstream outlets would rather ignore. The fact that the allegation of government interference came from independent reporting is not a coincidence. It's a reminder that real journalism survives outside the legacy media system these days, and that without it, this case might have looked like a routine persecution and prosecution instead of what it actually was, an attempt to set a political precedent through legal intimidation. And the final thing to say is this: Strecker's acquittal doesn't undo the damage the government intended to inflict, because the point of lawfare is not the verdict but the ordeal. The process is the punishment. The government got the process even if it didn't get the conviction. But it also didn't get the precedent, and that does matter.